Hi, I'm John Glynn. Today I'm just going to have a quick look at doing a picture here and put this picture and another picture onto a card for something like a postcard or birthday card, something along those sort of lines, and adding some text. Okay, the pictures, I've got a black and white photograph and a colour photograph, so it's up to you then to decide what you want. And I've also made sure that both pictures are flattened pictures. So in my layers palette, any work I've done on the picture I have flattened off, so I no longer have a layers open, and this makes life easier when you're putting the pictures onto a card, because by putting the pictures on a card you'll automatically create layers anyway, and to have these with layers and the card with layers would all get very confusing. So I find it much easier if all the work, any changes I want to make with my pictures, as I have done here and turned into a black and white photograph, if all the changes are made in advance, I keep a version of it with layers elsewhere. I then go to File, I got to Layer, Flatten Image, and I end up with just the background. And from there I can now look at creating a card. Now I just want basically a white sheet of paper. That's what it comes down to. So before I get to that point, I actually want to know how many pixels there are in this picture. I could put it onto any size card, but it's actually easier if I have the maths which are related to these pictures and the maths related to my piece of paper I'm going to create pretty much the same. So if I just got to image, I'll show you. If you go to image and image size, and then open up this window here, you'll notice that it comes up as centimeters, by the way. You can change that, but there is a little default setting on the right hand side where you've got these little funny arrows. If I click those arrows down, I can then turn everything into inches if I prefer. And it's 47 inches by 47 inches because this happens to be a square image. And the resolution is 72 pixels per square inch. Now that 72 pixels per square inch is actually related to the resolution on the monitor, not the resolution as a print. Okay, nothing to do with printing at all. So if I were to print this picture at 72 pixels per square inch, I would actually see them in my photograph. So I actually want more pixels per square inch than 72. And I can change that number by just highlighting it and putting in a bigger number, 300 for instance, and you can notice that when I do that, the actual physical size of the picture now changes to 11 inches by 11 inches. I say physical size, the actual size on the monitor won't change at all, but that's if I had to print this picture out, that's the size it would come out at. If I went and did 150, you can see that it's a 22 inch by 22 inch. So depending on the resolution will depend on the height and width sizes. However, I could also change the size. If I said, right, I want that width to be 8 inches, the height is now 8 inches as well because they're linked, and the resolution also changes. Okay? So just to get an idea of what's happening here, that if you change the height or the width or the resolution, those three things are linked, and you can see that through this kind of bracket here is linking those three. Now what you do want to make sure of if you're changing sizes at all is that that resample box is unticked. Okay, if that ticked and you make changes to your sizes, the picture itself will physically change size on the monitor. It will either get bigger or smaller depending on what these numbers are. So we don't want anything to actually change, we just want to find out the size of the resolution here at 428 or thereabouts, okay, for my sheet of paper. So I'm going to say OK. Now the actual other picture, if I got to the image size, and I'll do the same there, and I said, well, let's just go and put everything back to a normal size. This one is 72 pixels per square inch. This comes out at 42 inches by 28 inches. That's 72 inches, 72 pixels per square inch, because this picture here came from a different camera, and therefore the file size is different. The number of pixels in the picture are different as well, and therefore the size is smaller. If I go and put that at 300 pixels per square inch, it comes out at 10 by 6 inches, okay, because that's the actual number of pixels in the picture and related to the file size. So the more pixels you've got in your camera, the bigger your picture will be when you put it into image resize. So this will be dependent to a large extent on your original picture as to what sizes you'll go to. Again, always make sure the sample is switched off. I'll just say OK. Now, once you've kind of worked out what your paper is going to be like, we're going to create a new blank sheet of paper, and to do that you go up to File in the toolbar at the very top and go to New, and now this particular window, this will depend on what version of Photoshop you've got as to how this will look. And I've got orientation here, portrait landscape, and you'll notice that the width is in centimeters. If I want to change that, I can make it into inches, and it comes up with 4 by 6 inches. So if that's not any good to me, I can resize, highlight the number, put in a different size. So now I've got width at 8, height is 10. If I want to, on this particular version, if I click the landscape, it changes these boxes automatically. Now, other versions of Photoshop, like Photoshop Elements number 9, you would have to swap them over manually, okay, if you want to do a width and height or whatever. So it doesn't have these little boxes. Untitled, it's untitled number 1, so therefore if you want to give it a title, you can just highlight it and type in whatever you want to call it. I put in card, and the resolution. Now we know that my pictures were around about 300 pixels per square inch. This comes out about 300 pixels per square inch. If I'm happy with it, that's great. I could actually tap it in personally and make it exactly the size I want. That's fine. It's up to you. If it depends what that resolution is, but in that sort of region, it makes it easier to fit your pictures. Color. That's red, green and blue. If you want color pictures, you'll need to make sure it's red, green, blue. If you make it grayscale, any pictures you put onto your white sheet of paper will go black and white. Red, green, blue to keep everything in color. The piece of paper I'm going to use is white. If you're wanting a different color, you can choose a different color, red, etc. But I'm just going to stick with white. Okay, you do have black as automatic and background color, but we'll go with white. Okay, once I'm happy with the color and everything, all the other settings are approximately what I want. This is going to be a portrait sheet of paper. I say create, and I have a white sheet of paper. I now want to put my pictures into that sheet of paper. Now, depends what version of Photoshop you've got as to how you do this. If you have Photoshop Elements, at the bottom of your monitor will be the chance of taking your pictures and putting them onto the screen like so. And that will be at the bottom, and it's under Layout. There'll be a box at the bottom that says Layout. Click on Layout and you get different ways of seeing the layout of your photos on the monitor. Go to your Move tool and drag your pictures into the piece of paper. I'll just drag that one back up, out the way, and drag that one down, and you can see that picture is now on a white sheet of paper. I can drag this picture and do the same. Now, these pictures, I'll drag that one out the way, these pictures are bigger than the white sheet of paper. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see the bounding boxes. So my move tool is on. I'm going to show bounding boxes, show transform controls, That's the bounding box. To be able to see it more easily, if I hold the control key down and minus, I zoom out. That's the size of the picture. Now if I hadn't resized it, if I had just left it at the original size, it would be even bigger. So by resizing it means at least I can see it. Hold down the shift key possibly, go to a corner and resize. If I go to a corner and hold down the shift key, I keep everything in proportion. In some software packages you won't need to hold the shift key down, but you will have to go to a corner. If you go to the sides, you get distortion. Okay, so it's always going to be resized from a corner. And the same with the other picture. Now you'll notice I'm going to go to my layers palette. Layers palette is on the right hand side. I've got 3 layers. There's background layer, and there's a layer with the color picture and a layer with the black and white picture. I wish to go from layer to layer to resize the different pictures. This particular picture is a bounding box. Now in my version of Photoshop, I just double click the photo and it all fits it and it's nicely there. Other versions, you will have a little green tick that you have to tick to fix the way you want it to look. Okay, so yeah, you have to make sure you tick or click to make sure that it's happy. When it's happy, we can then move to other layers, and again, as you can see, the bounding box appears. There's a bounding box up the top. Remember, on mine it says show transform controls. It's often called a bounding box. If it's not there, there should be a little window to switch it on. I can then resize my picture and drag it onto my piece of white card. And then I got different layers and a background layer. Now I want to zoom back in again so I can see these pictures easily and at a normal size. To do that, I'm just going to do the control key, push down my control key on my keyboard and do the plus sign on the keyboard, and as I zoom in I can now see, yeah, I can now see everything. Okay, sorry about that data thing appearing. I've got problems with my computer, so it keeps on popping up every now and then. Okay, I've got my pictures. I can go to my move tool and I can move these pictures around. I can resize them and I can turn them. I can put them right upside down. Now it might be, I've zoomed a bit too far in, so I'm going to come out a bit. Control key minus. If you're printing cards out and you're going to have a card, and obviously you're going to have a fold somewhere in your card, probably if it's a birthday card or something, you may have to print your pictures upside down so that when you fold the card, the picture will be the right way round. Okay, just be aware of that when you're printing your pictures out, that they have to be the right way round in the fold after you've folded it. It's often worth doing a wee test just to make sure you got it the right way round. Okay, so I've got my pictures on my card. Now I'm going to add some text to my card. Now it will depend where you are. If you're on your background layer and I click T for text and start typing, the text will appear underneath my pictures. It's at the bottom. I'll show you. First of all, click the T. Somewhere on your monitor you will have a chance of changing the font, the size of the font, etc. They'll either be at the top of your window or at the bottom, depending what version of Photoshop you're using. In this one I'm using a professional version, so it's at the top, and I've got different fonts. So if I choose a different font, let's try something a little bit different. I will go to something like, oh, I don't know, Jill Sands, and you'll notice when I do that I get these two italic, bold, bold italic appear. Choose a different font and do Arial, and in Arial I get narrow, narrow italic, narrow bold, narrow italic bold, blah blah blah, bold, italic bold, black. Choose another one. I'll do Baskerville. If I can now find Baskerville, here's Baskerville Old Face. Oh, I have no choices. Okay, and I'm stuck with whatever I get from Baskerville Old Face. So depending what version, or rather what font to use, will depend on what comes up in that other box. Bauhaus 93, I get Bauhaus 93. Blackadder, I get Blackadder. But go to Arial and lo and behold, I get a whole load of different choices. The actual size of text is in the next box along. We've got 12 point. 12 is quite small, therefore you usually want a bit bigger than that. 72 is fairly big. If you want bigger than 72, then just delete number 72 and put in a bigger number. Let's just redo that. It says it's invalid, but let's just put in 150. And now you can see that it's a very big font. Okay, so 150 is very big, 72 is smaller, 12 is tiny. In this version I also get choices of having different types of font style, like crisp, sharp, strong, smooth, and that would be largely reliant on what you're going to do with your text, how you're going to print it out, whether it's on a website, etc., as to how you want it to be portrayed. We normally want it sharp, so sharp is what I get on mine. The colour of the font is determined by this little box at the top here. The normal colour is black, but if you want a different colour, lo and behold, you can go in and choose a different colour and say OK. The colour of the font is not impacted by the colour in the toolbox. The toolbox only relates to the pictures. The font has its own colour swatch. Next, letter T. Let me highlight that, and I'm going to move things around so you can see it a bit better. Let's just move some of these pictures out the way. Well, in fact, as you see, before I move the pictures, I'm going to change where they are. You'll notice that go to my layers palette. Look in the layers palette. The T text is underneath the other two picture layers. Okay, I want to see the text. I need to move these layers up. Does that make sense? I think it does. So therefore, if your text is underneath a layer, it's hidden. Pull it up, it appears. Okay, now I'll go to my move tool. I'll pick up that text. It's underneath the other picture because it's below this one. If I want it above that, I just drag it, and there it is above that one. You can drag these up and down as often as you like. Okay. Generally speaking, we want to see the text, therefore you would have it at the top. You just put your mouse over the font, over the layer, hold down the left mouse key and drag up, let go, and it will jump, hopefully, into position. Now I can move my text around on top of my pictures. Double click the T and it highlights the text and allows me to make any changes I wish. So now I could do red, say OK, and I've now got red font. Okay, double click the T. I can go into warp. I want to have a warped text. Let's do an upper arc. Let's change it, give it some kind of interesting look, say OK. Okay, so now that I've done a weird look to my text, the T changes, so I know that I've done a warp. If I want no warp, I just go back and do none, and it's back to normal again in the layers palette. If I do the T again, just click on the T. This area up the top, if you look at the choices, I've got left align, center align and right align, which is next to the color palette here. You'll notice that this only relates to the text inside my window. So I'm going to just show you this. If I put the X and V, XV, they're in the same window. If I center them, right align them and left align, they relate to one another. I'm going to take off this to make it easier to understand. I'm going to remove all of that, so it's no longer got a warp. By the way, I'll say OK, so it's no longer warped. Now I can go to center align, right align, left align. Does that make sense? You'll notice it only relates to this text, to itself, in the box, not to the photographs. Center align. It's centered to itself. The pictures is not centered to the pictures. If you want to center this to the pictures, you're then going to have to move the text around. If you want to center the pictures, you've got to move them around. If you want to know whether they're centered or not, go up to View and you'll have Ruler. Rulers are there, and rulers will now appear somewhere on your picture, around the edge of the picture rather, in your monitor. In some versions you will have rulers and grids. They will be next to one another. In my version I go to Show and I can do Grid, and I get a grid. Now I can be very accurate in moving my text around to make sure it's completely centered, because I can count how many specific squares there are either side or top and bottom of my text, and I can do the same with my photographs. By clicking on the pictures, I can then move the photos around and make sure they're square or matched up to one another. Okay, so, and once you've finished doing them, you can go back to View and turn them off. So again, rulers are on, turn them off. Grid is on. Now in my version it's Show, but in Photoshop Elements it's underneath rulers usually. There's Grid, and turn it off. The rulers and the grid will not print out, by the way. So there you have a way of getting your pictures onto a sheet of paper, your text onto paper, and moving them around. Okay, thank you for watching.